Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another very fun and special episode of First Drink Daily. I almost called it. Yeah, yeah, you know. Um, folks, today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy. They specialize in computer imaging, so your IT team doesn't have to. Check them out at smartdeploy.com/therut. Go grab those downloads, and yeah. Speaking of downloads, Paul, I hear it downloaded some snow in your neck of the woods.
Yep. I downloaded all over my house and all over my yard, and now I see little animal tracks out on the lawn.
It's very
Apparently,
graphic.
there was some scampering last night.
I keep meaning to bring this up, and this will be a nice segue. Speaking of animals, Paul, how's your dog?
Did you see the picture I posted this morning?
Yes.
Let's just say that she's risen to the same level of intelligence that I expect from my cats. Just leave it at that.
For those who aren't aware, Paul took I believe Paul purchased a very large dog bed. Very nice. You know, it even looked like it was by the heater. Very nice, accommodating.
Yeah.
And the dog is laying approximately 2 to 3 feet off of that on the wood floor.
Hardwood floor, yeah. The dog has never once laid on the bed. So we're probably just going to have to return it. But the other thing, this is harder to describe in a way, but the dog doesn't bark that much, but it barks when people leave the house. It doesn't like us to leave and not take her, which makes for an awkward morning every day because my daughter leaves to go to school, and then the dog wakes me up. So, but this is kind of hard to explain. Like the house we bought was I'm going to call her my stepmother. I don't really have a good term for this woman, but she's my stepmother, let's say. She is a kind woman. And she came to the door yesterday, and the dog barked went to town. And I've never seen the dog do this before. It was crazy. And I felt bad for her. She was obviously a little scared by this. 5 years old or something, right? 15 minutes later, the electrician showed up. The dog greeted him like he had just rescued France from the Nazis, like hopping up and down, wagging his tail, happy to see him. Guy walked in, stood up on my counter. He was here to fix something up in the kitchen. And the dog was ecstatic to see this man in the house. And I'm like, this is the opposite of what you want from a dog when it comes to protecting your home, Just classic. So there you go. That's dog ownership in a nutshell.
There you go. For all those people getting a dog, Paul's got you covered.
There's really not much more to say about it.
We're just going to rename this podcast Pet Rescue Daily, and we're just going to get live updates of all the animals in your household and around them.
Yeah, so. I think we're done rescuing. Yes.
It always cracks me up, and I know I'm not the first person to make this joke, but whenever somebody says they rescued an animal, I envision that they ran into a burning house instead of just walking down the aisles going, I'll have that one.
No, we walked calmly into a facility that has a bunch of these animals. And after a startlingly small amount of paperwork, we owned an animal. So
it's kind of like when you have a kid and I don't know what it was like when you had a kid, but to take the kid home, the only requirement now these days is that you have to be able to successfully strap them into a car seat, and then that's it.
That's exactly what it was.
Like,
all you needed was to show them you had a car seat.
Yes. And then they're like, okay, you can go home now. It's like, really? No.
Have the life.
Is there a book?
Is there a book? You don't even have a pamphlet? I've always been bemused by that.
Yep. Other good things happening. We'll start with the good things happening in Windows 10. If you are a fan of the open source world and all that good stuff, SSH support is apparently coming to Windows 10. Actually, in the fall creators update, apparently Microsoft is testing this right now with open SSH. And if that means things to you, it doesn't look like you're going to have to wait too much longer to get that.
Wow. Will that mean things to you? I guess so.
Yeah. And I kind of missed this, and apparently some other people did, because there was a lot of rage on Twitter yesterday. But actually, Raph, of all people, brought some sense and reasonability to the world a little bit here. So, Seth, yes, let me explain.
Please explain.
So, what was it, last week, I think, or the week before, Microsoft showed off sets. which is basically tabs for applications. And, they had a nice long blog post in it. And so everybody just kind of assumed that they were coming this spring in Redstone 4. That was kind of logical.
Yes.
But actually, yeah, why else would they show it off? We're in that sort of a cycle. Like when they should be showing new features, they showed off a new feature. Oh, it's going to come next. Well, actually, they didn't really say it's coming next. And that's kind of where Raph brought the rationale, because on the Windows Insider podcast yesterday, apparently they said, hey, this may not actually come in Redstone 4. It might be Redstone 5. And the internet lost its mind.
You know what?
Raph, yeah.
I'm sorry.
I gotta give Raph credit. Raph credit, 1 second. Raph pointed out in Terry's post, he said this is coming like in a future thing. May not necessarily be in Redstone 4. I not necessarily agree with it, but Raph is just like, hey, they actually
I'm sorry, but does Terry's post actually say it might not be in Redstone 4? Because I bet it doesn't. And after what happened at Build in April, where they announced all these features and everyone thought it was coming in the Fall Creators Update, and then they pretended like they never said that, and I went back and looked at the video, and they said it multiple times. For these guys to be this inspecific now is insane.
Yep.
Please tell me that's not true.
I fully agree. Well, here, and you probably made this connection as well to all this stuff. Here's what's like really odd about this. So Paul and I both know Brad Wardell pretty well, and he came to us and said, hey, look, we've got this app called Groupie, and it's going to bring tabs to literally everything in Windows, and it works great. I'm using it right now. And then it was very odd that like 3 days later, Microsoft comes out and announces sets. And then it kind of comes out and says, this may not ship all that quickly. I honestly wonder if they came out and were like, Jesus, man, Brad Wardell is going to ship an app. They're going to start selling it here, and it's going to do this feature. It's not ready yet, but we got to show it to show people like, hey, we're actually doing this. That's what it felt like to me.
Okay. I'm going to look this up. And if they didn't explicitly say it may not come in Redstone 4, what am I going to do? I don't know. I mean, I just, at some point you just kind of have to give up. Like, I don't understand. Oh boy. I don't understand. That's all I can say.
Microsoft doesn't understand. Like, they think that it's just okay to start talking about things and then not giving us an action. They can't just start announcing things and then be like, oh, it'll show up eventually. Like they are putting I'm going to create a term here, Paul. I'm going to create a term. Ready for this? It's called feature debt. Because they've announced so many. Yes, they've announced so many features. Timeline, Cloud Clipboard. They did it with My People. They're doing it here potentially with sets. That by the time that they're actually able to ship these features, people have known about them for so long, it doesn't feel new and shiny. And it's just like, we've kind of known about this forever. What's new? And so they're getting so far back cataloged into their features like this. It's getting frustrating because you're just sitting here waiting and you never know when this stuff's going to show up. I go back to the Files on Demand OneDrive team. They did it right. They said, this is a major feature. They announced it and they shipped it in the next update. That's how it should be.
I'm completely disgruntled now. You're right, and I'm thinking about this. It's just something I haven't thought about in a couple of weeks, I guess. But when they announced sets, you may recall the big controversy was that they were going to do A/B testing, right? That only some insiders were going to get it. Mm-hmm. That was the controversy. I'm going to reread. I can't read this on the podcast, obviously, to any depth, but the title of the post is an update on what's coming next for Windows Insiders. Why on earth would anyone think that we would be testing a feature in the Insider program that wouldn't be in the version of Windows that we are in fact now testing? Mm-hmm. That's all. Where did Raphael make this observation? On Twitter, I assume?
I don't know. He put it on Twitter. He was messaging me because he was doing a bunch of stuff. Because he actually went back, and I can send it to you if you want. He clipped the portion of the podcast from them about when they said, it's not coming. Yeah. But Paul, feel free to license the terminology like feature debt. I'll charge you a nice modest fee for that.
Microsoft's feature debt. Mm-hmm. At some point, I have to wonder if my constant complaining about their very real problems just becomes blowing in the wind, Like it has reached such a ludicrous point where I feel like people are going to start blaming the messenger here. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah.
their plan. We are in the fact-averse, age. I mean, they just announced new Bing features that are going to put opinions into search results because people's expectations around facts have changed. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, great. Okay, sorry. I could do this all day. It's too easy.
Yeah, and so I've got a busy day, so we're going to keep this one shorter than yesterday, although we're already 10 minutes in. Paul, did you see? So, switching gears mildly, when Apple announces like a new super high end product like the iPhone X, they kind of change things up a bit. They change the design. That's how they usher in a new design or all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you looked at the iMac Pro at all? I'm really baffled by how old this thing looks day one.
Yeah. The old design. You mean the physical design of the product is?
Yeah, like it has bezels the size of Wisconsin on it. Like I don't for a machine that
I have not
starts at
looked at it since they
$5,000.
announced it. Mostly because I am never, ever, 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 ever going to buy a $5,000 computer, let alone a $5,000 Macintosh. So
I'm assuming
that's
you've
your
ordered two
question.
by now. Yeah, no, it just seems like it was a missed opportunity for them to say, hey, you know what? Here's the new iMac design going forward. All they had to do is just shrink the bezels. But now,
Yeah.
like, it's going to be real awkward if they update the design on the lower end, but not the super high end. So I don't know.
Here's what's really goofy about the iMac to me, and this has bothered me for a long time, and I think this is something a lot of people will agree with. A long time ago, they had that the sunflower version, right? The one that had like kind of a half globe base,
Yep.
and then like a metal arm of some kind that had an angle to it, and then the screen kind of floated, and the effect was that the screen floated. Those machines, of course, had much smaller displays than we see today. I think there were 15 and 17-inch displays at the time, and I'm sure they mapped exactly to whatever power books they had. It's possible that the bigger screens we have today would make such a design untenable, although I will point to the various HP all-in-one computers that use a very similar design that have enormous, like 34-inch curved displays, for example. I always thought that design was more elegant than the stuff that they moved to, because they went to the predecessor of what we see today. Basically, just a panel with like a thick arm on the back and a base that has nothing in it. It's just a weight. And now what you can do is you can tilt the screen to an angle, but you don't get all the movement that you got with it. Years later, Microsoft comes out with a Surface Studio that has much of that same style of movement. In fact, it's even less than the iMac, but let's say much of the same. And of course, the key innovation there is that you can bring it forward and write on it and draw on it and stuff. Apple had this like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago probably, and they abandoned it for this less functional thing. I'm just so like you said, now it's $5,000. Now you get a version of this thing that's $5,000, and all you can do is tilt the screen, which is handy because it's got a huge bezel you can grab.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, the one nice thing about it is you don't ever have to worry about fingerprints on it because it's not.
Yes, there's no reason to touch this thing. Yeah, yes. You can just love it for the object of art that it is, I guess.
That's that's it. All right, Paul, you got anything else for today?
No, now I'm all burned because of this sets thing. Please send me the link to this. This is alarming. That they would. This is like, seriously. Don't you just kind of wonder the inability to communicate effectively? Like, to what extent can we go with this? Seriously, like how many times do they have to be called out on this stuff?
The nice thing is that if it doesn't ship in Redstone 3, that means they effectively announced the feature a year early. So, yeah.
It's pathological. And by the way, if they had said it may not come in Redstone 4, that would obviously be fine. That's all it has to say. We don't know when it's going to ship. No promises.
Yep.
Simple. I'll look for that language. I don't believe it's there.
But you have fun. And yeah, we'll wrap it up. As a reminder, folks, today's show is brought to you by Smart Deploy, IT tools to manage your Windows computer made easier. Check it out, smartdeploy.com/threat. And we'll catch you right back here tomorrow on a live show at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be slightly interesting because I got to fly home before then. So if I'm not there, I'm stuck in an airport. Have yourselves a wonderful day.